When most men hear the words prostate enlargement, they think of something that just happens with age, something they have to accept, something that slowly steals sleep, comfort, and confidence. They think of waking up at night again and again. They think of rushing to the bathroom at the worst possible moment. They think of a weak stream, a slow start, and that frustrating feeling that the bladder is never fully empty. And because so many men go through it, they assume it is just part of getting older, like gray hair or reading glasses. But here's the truth that changes everything. Your prostate is not just a passive organ waiting to fail. It is a living tissue responding every single day to inflammation, oxidative stress, hormones, metabolic health, sleep, and the foods you put on your plate. In other words, the prostate listens to the body, and when the body is in trouble, the prostate often feels it first. Now imagine this. One small nut, something you can hold between two fingers, may help support the systems in your body that protect the prostate from damage. Not a miracle, not magic, not a cure, but a simple food with a surprisingly powerful nutritional profile that can support the very biology behind healthier aging. That nut is the Brazil nut. And before you say, it is just a nut, how could that possibly matter? Let me stop you right there, because the smallest things in nutrition often have the biggest effects. A tiny serving can carry a nutrient load that punches far above its size. Brazil nuts are famous because they are one of the richest natural sources of selenium in the world. Selenium matters because it helps the body build antioxidant defenses, regulate inflammation, and support the repair systems that keep cells from being overwhelmed by daily stress. That matters for the prostate. Why? Because an enlarged prostate does not happen in a vacuum. It often develops in a setting where inflammation is simmering in the background, where oxidative stress is building, where metabolism is out of balance, where aging tissues are more vulnerable, and where the body is not getting the raw materials it needs to maintain resilience. When the internal environment becomes hostile, tissues do not age gracefully, they struggle. Think about the prostate like a small workshop sitting deep in the body. It is active, sensitive, and constantly influenced by hormones and cellular signals. Now imagine that workshop being exposed day after day to too much metabolic stress, too little antioxidant support, poor sleep, excess belly fat, and a diet that starves it of protective compounds. Over time, that workshop gets clogged, irritated, and overworked. That is how problems begin. And this is where Brazil nuts become interesting. Selenium is not famous because it sounds dramatic. It is famous because it works quietly, behind the scenes. It helps activate enzymes that protect cells from oxidation. It helps support glutathione-related defenses, which are part of the body's internal cleanup crew. It helps the body manage stress at the cellular level. And because the prostate is especially sensitive to oxidative damage and chronic inflammatory signaling, that kind of support can matter more than most people realize. Now, let me be very clear. This is not about swallowing handfuls of nuts and expecting the prostate to shrink overnight. That is not how the body works. The body is not a vending machine. You do not press the Brazil nut button and get an instant result. Nutrition works more like a steady conversation. You give the body useful signals every day, and over time, it changes how it behaves. That is the real power here. One nut, eaten consistently and wisely, can be part of a pattern that tells the body, we are reducing damage, we are lowering stress, we are giving cells a better environment, we are supporting repair instead of feeding inflammation. That is a message the prostate understands. And if you are wondering why I keep emphasizing one, that is because Brazil nuts are unusually concentrated. This is not an ordinary snack food where you can freely keep eating more and more. Selenium is helpful in the right amount, but too much selenium can become a problem. The same food that supports health in a small serving can become harmful in large amounts. That is why wisdom matters as much as enthusiasm. In fact, this is one of the most important lessons in nutrition. Powerful foods are not always the foods people eat the most. Sometimes the most valuable foods are the ones you use with precision. A little is enough. A single nut may provide a meaningful amount of selenium, though the exact amount can vary depending on where it was grown. That is why the smart approach is moderation, not obsession. But let us go deeper, because the story of the prostate is not really just about one nutrient. It is about the whole ecosystem around the prostate. The prostate is influenced by inflammation, and inflammation is influenced by diet. It is influenced by blood sugar spikes, and blood sugar spikes are influenced by the type of food you eat. It is influenced by body fat, especially abdominal fat, because fat tissue is not passive. It is biologically active. It releases chemical signals that can promote inflammation. It is influenced by sleep because poor sleep disrupts hormone balance and raises stress signaling. It is influenced by movement because exercise improves blood flow and metabolic health. So when we talk about a Brazil nut helping support the prostate, we are not saying the nut is a solo hero. We are saying it plays one important role in a bigger orchestra. And when the orchestra is tuned properly, the body performs better. This is exactly why food-based strategies are so powerful. They do not attack the body, they support it. Many men wait until symptoms become impossible to ignore before they start thinking about the prostate. But by then, the body has often been sending signals for years. Maybe there was more nighttime urination. Maybe the stream became weaker. Maybe it took longer to empty the bladder. Maybe there was more urgency, more discomfort, more frustration. These are not random annoyances. They are messages. And here is the encouraging part. The body is responsive. It is not frozen. Even in later life, the environment around the prostate can improve. Inflammation can be lowered. Metabolic health can improve. Oxidative stress can be reduced. Blood vessels can function better. Diet can become more protective. Sleep can become deeper. Movement can become more regular. A person can shift the terrain. That is why one nut can matter more than it sounds. Because when people hear one nut, they think small. But in biology, small can be meaningful when the signal is strong. Think of it like a key in a lock. You do not need a whole truckload of keys. You need the right one, used properly. Brazil nuts may support prostate health in several ways. First, selenium helps the body defend against oxidative stress. Oxidative stress is what happens when harmful molecules outnumber the body's protective systems. That imbalance can damage cells and contribute to aging-related problems. The prostate, like many organs, is vulnerable to that kind of stress. Second, selenium supports antioxidant enzymes that help clean up cellular damage. These enzymes are part of the body's defense network. They do not eliminate aging, but they help slow the wear and tear that pushes tissues toward dysfunction. Third, healthy selenium intake may support immune balance. The immune system is constantly scanning the body, repairing damage, and responding to threats. When the system is overactivated or poorly regulated, inflammation rises. And chronic inflammation is one of the most common themes behind many age-related conditions, including prostate issues. Fourth, Brazil nuts can be part of a better overall eating pattern. People who make room for nutrient-dense foods often crowd out foods that drive inflammation, such as ultra-processed snacks, refined carbohydrates, sugary drinks, and heavy late-night eating. Sometimes the benefit is not only what you add, but what you naturally stop overdoing. Now, let's address something important. Men often want a single answer. They want the one food, the one trick, the one supplement, the one habit. I understand why. When you are tired of the bathroom trips, the frustration, the sleep disruption, and the constant inconvenience, you want the fastest path to relief. But the most honest answer is usually the most useful one. The prostate responds to patterns. There is no single food that can erase years of metabolic stress. Yet there are foods that can nudge the body in the right direction, and a Brazil nut is one of them. That is why this food gets attention. It is simple, cheap, natural, and deeply nutrient-dense. No fancy packaging, no complicated formula, No marketing drama, just a food that has been quietly carrying selenium for millions of years through the soil and the tree and finally into your hand. And that brings up something else that people often miss. The source of selenium matters. You can take a supplement, yes, but food brings more than one isolated compound. Food comes with context. Food arrives with a matrix, a natural package, a rhythm that the body recognizes. A Brazil nut is not just selenium, it is also a whole food experience, and that matters because the body does not run on isolated nutrients alone. It runs on patterns. Now, I want to be very practical. If a man is thinking about using Brazil nuts to support prostate health, the first question is not, how many can I eat? The first question is, what is the right amount? And the answer is usually very modest. One Brazil nut a day is often enough for many people, and in some cases, even less frequent use may be reasonable depending on the rest of the diet and the individual's overall selenium intake. More is not better. Repeating that is important because too much selenium can backfire, and that is not a small warning. Excess selenium can cause problems, including digestive upset, hair and nail issues, and other unwanted effects when consumed in large amounts over time. So the goal is not to chase selenium like a man chasing a car that is moving too fast. The goal is to get enough to support health without crossing the line into excess. This is what makes nutrition intelligent. It is not about extremes. It is about precision. The same mindset applies to the prostate itself. You do not support prostate health by focusing on one food and ignoring the rest of your life. You support it by building a lifestyle that lowers inflammation from multiple directions. That means choosing more plants, more fiber, more colorful foods, more healthy fats, more movement, better sleep, less alcohol if needed, and less late-night overeating. The Brazil nut fits into that picture beautifully because it is a concentrated, easy-to-use tool. And let me tell you something else. Men often underestimate how much the prostate is influenced by the health of their blood vessels. The prostate is not isolated from the rest of the body. Blood flow matters. Vascular health matters. If the circulation is poor, if the endothelium is unhappy, if the metabolic system is struggling, the tissues that depend on that blood supply feel the consequences. That is one reason why foods that support the vascular system often also support urinary and prostate health. The body is connected. It always has been. So when a Brazil nut helps support antioxidant defense, it is not helping only one tiny corner of the body. It is supporting the larger internal environment that allows the prostate to function in a less stressed state. Think about the long game. A lot of men wait until they are older and then try to reverse decades of neglect in a week. But the body prefers consistency. It prefers steady inputs. It prefers a reliable environment. If you are someone who wants to protect your prostate as you age, there are a few questions worth asking yourself honestly. How often am I eating ultra-processed foods? How often am I sitting for long hours without moving? How much sleep am I actually getting? Is my weight creeping up around the middle? Do I drink too much alcohol? Do I ignore the early warning signs? These questions matter because prostate health is never just about the prostate. And that is why a Brazil nut can be a good symbol of the whole approach. It is small, but it represents a bigger choice. The choice to give your body something protective instead of something damaging. Now, some men will ask, what about other nuts? Almonds, walnuts, pistachios, and others all bring their own benefits. They can support heart health and help with satiety. But Brazil nuts are unique because of their selenium content. That is what makes them stand out in this conversation. They are not a generic nut. They are a precision tool. Still, there is no need to romanticize a single food. A healthy prostate does not come from worshiping one ingredient. It comes from building a low-inflammatory, nutrient-rich pattern. One Brazil nut can be the spark, but the fire is built by the entire lifestyle. And if you are thinking, can this really help with enlargement? The best honest answer is that it may help support the biological conditions that make enlargement less aggressive over time, especially when it is part of a healthy pattern. But if symptoms are already significant, diet alone is not enough. You need proper medical evaluation. Prostate enlargement can have several causes and levels of severity, and it is important to rule out more serious issues when symptoms appear. This is not about fear, it is about respect. Respect for the body, respect for the signals, respect for the fact that early action is easier than late rescue. There is also a psychological truth here. When men feel powerless about their health, they often stop paying attention altogether. They tell themselves it is just age. They tell themselves they will deal with it later. They tell themselves there is nothing useful they can do. But that mindset steals options. Once a person believes change is possible, their behavior changes. They move more. They eat better. They drink more water. They sleep earlier. They pay attention. And that attention matters. The body responds to care. The prostate responds to care. Even small changes can compound over time. Now let us talk about how Brazil nuts fit into a real day. You do not need to build your life around them. You simply need to know where they belong. For many people, one nut can be added to breakfast, eaten with fruit, or included as a tiny part of a mixed snack. Some people may prefer to chop it and sprinkle it into yogurt or oatmeal. Others may simply eat it on its own with a meal. The point is not ceremony, the point is consistency. And consistency works best when the food is easy. Easy means repeatable. Repeatable means sustainable. Sustainable means results can accumulate. That is a principle worth remembering for almost every health goal. Now, I also want to mention something that is often overlooked in prostate conversations: blood sugar. High blood sugar and insulin resistance can create a more inflammatory environment in the body. Men who carry excess weight, especially around the waist, often have more of the metabolic stress that aggravates tissue aging. So while a Brazil nut may play a supportive role, the bigger picture includes reducing the foods that spike blood sugar too often. That means fewer sugary drinks, fewer sweets, fewer refined snacks, fewer late-night heavy meals, more vegetables, more beans, more whole foods, more protein from healthy sources, more water, better timing. When you combine those habits with smart nutrient support, the body gets a more favorable environment. And let me give you a simple image. Think of your body as a garden. If the soil is poor, even a strong seed struggles. If the soil is healthy, a small seed can thrive. Brazil nuts are like a helpful amendment to the soil. They do not replace sunlight, water, and good care, but they improve the conditions. And when conditions improve, tissues can function better. That is the kind of thinking that leads to long-term health. Not fear, not hype, not miracle thinking, just good biology. Many men are surprised to learn that prostate health and heart health often overlap. Both are influenced by inflammation. Both are influenced by vascular health. Both are influenced by metabolic health. Both are influenced by diet quality. That means the same simple habits that help your arteries may also help your prostate. It is one of the beautiful efficiencies of the human body. Improve one system and another often benefits too. And because Brazil nuts are also associated with supporting the body's antioxidant defenses, they fit into this broader theme of protection. The body is constantly under assault from normal wear and tear, pollution, stress, poor diet, and time itself. Antioxidant support does not make you immortal, but it helps your cells withstand the pressure. That pressure matters in aging tissues, and the prostate is an aging tissue in many men who struggle with enlargement. So yes, one nut can be surprisingly meaningful. But let me say again, because it is essential, do not overdo it. Brazil nuts are not a snack to eat by the handful. Their selenium content is so concentrated that the margin between helpful and excessive can be smaller than people expect. The exact amount varies, which is another reason to keep portions modest. A single nut is often enough. In some routines, even a few times a week may be plenty. The goal is not to maximize intake. The goal is to use the food wisely. That is the kind of wisdom that turns a trendy idea into a real health strategy. Now imagine a man in his 60s or 70s who is waking up 2 or 3 times a night to urinate. He is tired. He is irritated. He is getting less deep sleep. His energy is dropping. his patience is shorter, his mood is affected, his relationships feel the strain. This is not just a bathroom issue, it is a quality of life issue. Sleep disruption affects memory, mood, blood pressure, appetite, and immune function. And once sleep becomes poor, the body can drift into a cycle that makes everything else harder. That is why supporting prostate health is not a minor concern. It can affect the whole life. And when a person starts eating in a way that supports lower inflammation and better repair, the ripple effects can be powerful. One Brazil nut may be a tiny step, but small steps are how real change begins. The secret is to stop thinking in dramatic extremes and start thinking in biological leverage. What single change gives me the most return? What food helps the body more than it harms? What choice is so easy that I can actually stick with it? That is where progress begins. Brazil nuts answer those questions beautifully because they are easy, natural, and potent. They give the body selenium in a way that food systems understand. They fit into a healthy meal pattern. They can support the antioxidant network. They can help reduce the burden of cellular stress. And for a tissue like the prostate, which is vulnerable to aging-related stress, that matters. Of course, no speech on prostate health would be complete without reminding you that symptoms matter. If you have persistent trouble urinating, blood in the urine, pain, sudden worsening, or significant nighttime urination that is affecting daily life, you should not ignore it. Those signs deserve medical attention. Nutrition is supportive, not a substitute for proper evaluation, but for men who want to act early, who want to stack the odds in their favor, who want to give their body a better chance to age with less inflammation and more resilience, this is a simple place to begin. One nut, one small habit, one powerful signal, and sometimes that is exactly how the body starts to change. Not with a giant dramatic move, not with fear, not with perfection, with something small enough to repeat, with something smart enough to matter, with something simple enough to survive real life. So if you remember only one thing today, remember this. The prostate is deeply influenced by the internal environment, and one Brazil nut can be a surprisingly effective part of a larger strategy to support that environment. It is not a cure, it is not a magic trick, and it should not be overused. But in the right amount, as part of a healthy lifestyle, it may help protect the cells, support antioxidant defenses, and contribute to a body that is less inflamed and more resilient. That is how nutrition works at its best, quietly, consistently, powerfully. And that is why this tiny nut deserves a place in the conversation about prostate health. Because sometimes the smallest foods carry the biggest messages. And sometimes the body is only waiting for a better message.